Hello, my name is Jasna Liverios. I'm PhiAcademy's master for PhiBrows Delphi technique. It is a machine hair stroke technique and it is the latest trend in permanent makeup. The advantages of this technique are that we're actually not cutting the skin, we're creating the hair strokes with the small dots next to each other. And as well, comparing to microblading, it gives us the opportunity to actually add density on the same stroke on the certain areas, especially in the middle of the eyebrow. In the next video, you will be presented with this technique step by step. It is going to be explained in really small details, so I really hope it's going to help you, even if you are a beginner or if you are a professional already doing this technique. You will get many useful tips. I hope you enjoy it and wish you best of luck. The first step of the procedure is that we have to have the hygiene on the highest level, our hygiene as well as the client's hygiene. So I wouldn't suggest any contact with the client's skin without gloves. Before proceeding, we need to remove all the extra makeup, all the makeup. The whole area above the eyelashes, so any eyeshadow, must be cleaned, as well as the whole forehead. The eyebrows, in this case the client doesn't have a lot of eyebrows, but anyhow, especially if the client has very thick eyebrows, we need to push the hair of the client in both directions, just to make sure that we have cleaned everything. We need first to find the center of the face, which is the easiest if we measure the part above the nose. With the 2 points of compass, we're going to measure the white part of the eyes, and then by turning upside down the compass, we're going to actually mark the beginning of the eyebrow. The end of the eyebrow we're going to find by starting from the tip of the nose, last eyelash, and there we mark the point 3, the end of the eyebrow. By 2 points of the compass, putting them on point 1 and point 3, so measuring the length of the eyebrow, we're gonna turn around the compass and we're gonna mark the point 2, which is the arch, which is the highest point on the eyebrows. So we're gonna transfer everything as well on the other side, and as well, if you can see, I'm also marking the point 5 as well. The height of the eyebrow, so to determine how high or low the eyebrow is gonna be, we're gonna check the bones also from below, and as well we're gonna follow the bone on the arch, which is gonna show us how high the eyebrow should be. The thickness of the eyebrow is suggested always, of course, to be close to the client's natural thickness. So we need to connect the points 4 to 5 should be with the smaller like belly towards down, and then 1 to 2 points should be straight. And here, as you saw, we're going to follow the natural bone of the client. Transfer all this as well on the other brow as well. I didn't mention that it is for this case, it is suggested to do it with the white pencil, because you will see in the next steps we're gonna do the pattern actually with the black pencil, so it's gonna help us just to distinguish the strokes that we are going to work on top of it. So also point 6 is is the highest part of the eyebrow from below, from the bottom line of the eyebrow. The pencil we should keep very sharp. It is very important so we can have clean strokes that we can work on top of them. The pattern that we're gonna choose is supposed to be always very close to the client's, has to be close to the client's natural eyebrows, because that is the only way that we're gonna have very natural results. And so each stroke should be in the direction that the client's hair is also going. In the case that client doesn't have a lot of eyebrows, or for example they don't have a lot of eyebrows in the tail, you can play a bit and you can, for example, lift it up if you consider it is fitted in for the certain client, for example. But only if the client doesn't have a lot of hair, we can do that. Otherwise, it is really recommended to follow the natural direction of our client's hair. I usually prefer S strokes, which are, like you see, a bit wavy, and it gives really nice result. But of course, everyone can work any kind of pattern and strokes they prefer, as long as it is close to client's eyebrows. So we're gonna check the shape with the PhiApp, and we're gonna proceed. As long as the shape is correct, we're gonna proceed to the procedure. The pigment that we are gonna use should be, so in this video I'm using super pigments, and we have to dilute them with thinner. So the proportions are like, for example, 2 drops of pigment with 1 drop of thinner. The machine has to be really secured and protected for each use, for each client, with the foil. And so we're gonna proceed with the procedure. With the tip of the needle, we need to absorb the pigment. And we are starting. So the correct stretching of the skin is also, it is the most important part, because that is the only way that we can keep under the control and the skin, and we can have nice crispy strokes. So my suggestion is that if you're a beginner and you have difficulty to depends which technique you were using until now, but sometimes even if we are doing some other technique, there are different movements, so we got used to that. So in this case, going again and again by each movement on the top of the same stroke, it can be a bit difficult. So I suggest, for the beginners especially, in order to keep thin strokes, I suggest small movements for the beginning, small and faster movements. There is no correct or incorrect speed of the movement, as long as the speed of your hand is correct and synchronized with the speed of the needle. So if you have a fast hand, I would suggest using the speed from 5 to 6 on Simplicity Master. In the case you have slower movement, you can use the speed 4 to maximum 5. So it needs to be synchronized because each time the stroke hits the skin, it has to have time to punch the skin and to place the pigment and then to proceed. So you can start with small movements, and we build the strokes as we are outside of the shape of the eyebrow. We shouldn't do many passes. So we start with one small movement, and then as more we are going in the middle of the eyebrow, we are building on the strokes and going more passes than at the end of the eyebrow, on the edges of the eyebrow. In the case you are more experienced, you can start with the small, short and faster movements at the edges of the eyebrow, and as long as you are going to the middle of the eyebrow, you can make longer movements, but they have to be slower. So longer the movement, you need to make your hand movement has to be slower, as well as the speed of the machine. During the whole process, the 3-point stretch of the skin is really crucial, so we need to pay attention to that at all points. One more advantage of this technique is that we can actually overlap the strokes, which we are not, we cannot do that with the microblading, because it's gonna make the skin damaged and the result is gonna be smudged. In this case, we can actually cross the strokes as long as we're trying to keep not many crossovers at the same point. Don't rush and go too fast over the stroke, because for me, for example, in the beginning I was going too fast, and because I got used to with microblading that you have faster movements and the strokes are still there. In this case, you need to really be patient, and you can actually also count as you build a stroke. So me personally, I start with one stroke, and then I go for about 30% below, and then on the same point 1, 2, then again I go for 30% below, and then 1, 2, 3 in the same place, and again lower, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 1 as I'm leaving the stroke, because I want the edges, especially if it's a single stroke, I want the end of the strokes to be lighter and darker and fuller in the middle. In the case it's a couple that we want to join, we are gonna keep the edges of the eyebrow lighter, and the point where the two strokes are meeting, going together, there I'm gonna go with more passes to give more density in that area. In this case, we're gonna first go the basic strokes. Depends, someone prefers to do all the strokes together. I like to do basic strokes and the secondary strokes together, and then the small baby strokes I add at the end. Just I don't want to lose the shape, so I go over these two strokes, basic and secondary, and then at the end I give small baby strokes just for more realistic look. You can see also here we can overlap the stroke. It gives a small detail, but nice, really. It looks really natural at the end. Just don't go too much with overlapping, because still, we want to have the clean and nice strokes. And as well, try to have the when you are overlapping the strokes to be in a small angle, so we don't want them to look like a cross, for example. It should be around 20-25 degrees where they are crossing one another. As you know, the beginning of the eyebrow, the skin is thicker there, so it's not that we want to go deeper, just the epidermis is thicker there, so we're gonna need to use a bit more pressure than in the tail. I didn't mention before, once we start with the first few strokes, we need to clean 1-2 strokes. We need to clean so we can actually check are we on the right pressure, or are we not making any kind of damages to the skin? Did we choose correct thickness of the needle, and are we applying the correct pressure? So once we make sure that it is correct, then we are proceeding. So it is always suggested first few strokes to wipe out, so you can just make sure that you're actually having the result that you want. So also, again, on the front part, we are just going to use a bit stronger pressure than at the tail of the eyebrow. Not because we want to go deeper, just because the epidermis is thicker. So to reach the point where the pigment will stay, we just need to use slightly bigger pressure. You can see that there is no bleeding. It is actually quite light technique. I mean, it's not invasive, so you will be actually happy with the result. The pain is minimum. The clients usually do not complain at all. I use the secondary aesthetic, I will say after, but for this first pass that it is done without anesthetic, it is actually no one is mentioning that any kind of pain or not even discomfort, you know. It is really soft for the skin, and it doesn't have awkward sound, for example, because sometimes, for example, with the microblading, clients are saying that they don't feel comfortable with the sound. There is just really, it is really easy, really light. Make sure the tail to be correct with the pressure here. Again, you see the stretching of the skin is really, you know, it's really tight. It has to be like that. Well, not too much, don't get me wrong, because we don't want to press the client or something, because more we're stretching, we're actually making the skin thinner. So especially in this area, we just want the skin not to move, not too much pressure, because sometimes we can just trying to be careful, we can actually overdo it. You can add baby strokes even now, or you can also do it at the end. So after the first pass, you will see that the strokes should be visible, just like small dots. They shouldn't be strong lines, which that means that you are overdoing, that you worked too much on the first pass. If you work too much on the first pass and you insist a lot on each stroke, it will not give you the opportunity to give the density you want after. So if all the strokes are very toned and show full pigment after the first pass, it means that you are insisting too much and filling in and trying to fill in the whole eyebrow with the first pass, which actually doesn't help, because then, as I said, you cannot add density. Then it's just gonna be too much and overworked. Here you can see on the second pass, the strokes that the part of the stroke that we actually want to give the density, we can use the pendulum movement, so we can go back and forth through the skin by, of course, each time going out of the skin. So as we're entering and as well exiting the skin, the needle should leave shouldn't be constantly in the skin. It gives more powdery effect, more natural effect. So we can start on the second pass with small short movements at the edges of the eyebrow, and as we're going in the middle of the eyebrow, As we said, we want to make longer movements there, because slower and longer we're going, more pigment gets into the skin. So in the middle of the eyebrow, you can slow down your movement, but always try to leave the skin just slower and longer movements. If you are a beginner, as I said, it might be difficult, not for everyone, but for me, for example, when I started, it was really difficult for me to keep thin strokes with a big movement. So I was going with the shorter movements, and after a while I felt more comfortable and I started going in the middle of the eyebrow longer and slower movements. The point is that anyway we want to give density in the in the middle of the eyebrow, and the strokes as they are reaching the spine. So even if you are not correct, I mean you're not exactly on the same point, actually that's also the way to give density in the middle. So it's not only to go too many times on the same stroke and to insist on the same stroke so much. We want to exit a bit of the stroke in the spine. So we want to give density by building the thickness of the stroke, not only too many passes on the same stroke. So you can combine those movements, but mostly in the part you want to give more density. For the front strokes, I like to do small, short movements and fast ones, so it keeps these front strokes really thin and nice. Again, be careful on the tail of the eyebrow, because the skin is quite thinner, and make sure that you're not damaging the skin in any way. So, second pass, as I said, you can do a bit slower movements in the middle of the eyebrow, in the spine. As you are exiting, small, faster movements, just to have like ombre, you know, result, like to be lighter at the end than they are in the middle of the eyebrow. So how many passes we're gonna do on each client depends, like, basically on the type of the skin, as it is for all the techniques in permanent makeup. There are skins that are absorbing the pigment very easily, and there are pigments that there are type of the skin that it's very sensitive, and the lenthical liquid is coming out a lot and it has difficulty to absorb the pigment. So it really depends on that. Minimum should be 3 passes, and then the 4th pass I do sometimes also with a 3-round needle. So there are 3 needles. This is done with a 1-point needle most of the procedure, and then at the end, if you have a very sensitive skin and you don't want to insist anymore on the middle of the eyebrow, you can take the 3-point needle, which is even softer for the skin, and you can create that result with a more gentle movement. You can add, again, at this point, the baby strokes. So as you see, it already got more pigment into the skin. So this part now you can start adding more small strokes, baby strokes, and again we're gonna pass in the middle of the eyebrow, in the spine. So I'm just now going on the middle, the part where I want to give density. I really believe you're gonna love this technique, because it gives this amazing realistic result that I really fell in love with. It gives you more opportunities. In the case you need something new, you need some change, it's really nice to try it out. just as a beginner, you can also try it on latex just to see, but it brings something new to the permanent makeup, and I really believe you're gonna like it. I'm crazy about it. So you see, sometimes just a few small strokes just coming out of the eyebrow, like the natural eyebrow that we just brushed. It's this small touch that gives something really nice. So these small endings, you see, you can do a bit faster as you go, just to go out of the skin and to make it thinner. It takes a bit of practice on latex as well before you start. In the beginning I was practicing on the latex every time the client comes, just to keep my hands steady, because it was difficult to me to have one point needle just having to go again and again on the same stroke, because I'm used to microblading, so it's much easier once you have the contact with the skin and just to slide. So this I found a bit more difficult, but it's totally worth it. And then small touch-ups, anything you need is necessary. You don't need to go over all the strokes. Just check, do you have the final result that you want? So at this point you can also use like I said, the 3-point needle. I didn't use it this case, but you can use that just to make them thicker there. Each time you touch the skin, you actually need to feel that the needle is going through the skin. So it must not scratch the skin. Just need to make sure. For example, if I was going with this speed and longer movements, I would be scratching the skin. So you need to keep, if you have a fast movement, you need to keep small, short movements, but always try to get out of the skin as you are entering and as you are exiting the skin. So we're gonna clean you can leave the pigment at the end for 5-10 minutes, just to absorb, max 10 minutes, no more. And then you can clean with PhiFoam, which cleans really nice. And as you can see, the result is really natural. So I hope you like it, and thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.